Imagine being born into a family so poor that you never know whether there will be food on the table the next day. Imagine watching your mother lose her job because of illness while your father disappears from your life. Imagine spending part of your childhood in London's workhouses, places where poverty was not an exception but an everyday reality. This is not the story of a fictional character. This is the story of Charlie Chaplin. Before we begin, take a moment and ask yourself one simple question. What would Charlie Chaplin think about money if he were alive today? Millions of people now chase quick profits, miracle investments, and overnight success. Every day, social media is filled with promises of becoming rich within a few months, while patience has almost become a forgotten quality. Chaplin would most likely tell us the exact opposite. Real wealth does not come from luck. Real wealth comes from creating value every single day. Cryptocurrencies did not exist. Artificial intelligence did not exist. The internet did not exist. All he had was extraordinary talent, remarkable discipline, and a vision that very few people could understand. While others focused on making money by the following week, Chaplin spent his time building something that would continue creating value for decades. That is exactly where his story connects with ours. Modern tools may change, but timeless principles remain the same. Anyone can build a business, write a book, create a patent, start a YouTube channel, or launch an online company. Anyone can invest, save, and build lasting wealth. Every journey begins the same way, by creating something useful that continues helping people over time. Charlie Chaplin understood a truth that feels even more relevant today. Money is only the result. Value always comes first. Greater value allows you to help more people, and helping more people creates greater wealth. More than 100 years have passed since his first films, yet people around the world still talk about Charlie Chaplin. Laughter alone is not the reason. His life proves that someone who starts with nothing can still build extraordinary wealth by refusing shortcuts and choosing instead to create lasting value day after day. Now let us discover how a boy raised in extreme poverty became one of the most influential and financially successful figures in the history of cinema. Today, millions of people recognize his face because of The Little Tramp. Very few people, however, realize that his greatest masterpiece was not cinema alone. His greatest achievement was transforming a life marked by poverty into one of the largest fortunes ever built in the entertainment industry. Charlie Chaplin was born in London in 1889. Both of his parents worked as music hall performers, but their careers faded quickly. His father died while Charlie was still a child, and his mother, suffering from severe illness, could no longer provide for her children. Many years were spent moving between workhouses, temporary jobs, and constant hunger alongside his brother Sidney. Those difficult experiences taught him a lesson that stayed with him forever. Financial security should never be taken for granted. Even as a child, he understood that talent could become the passport to a completely different life. At the age of 9, he began performing in popular theaters. Fame had not arrived yet. Hard work was the only thing that mattered. Every performance became a lesson. Every mistake became experience. Every round of applause became another investment in his future. During 1913, he arrived in the United States with an English theater company. Hollywood noticed him soon afterward. Within only a few years, The Little Tramp had conquered audiences around the world. Neither the costume, nor the cane, nor the famous bowler had explained his success. His relentless pursuit of quality made all the difference. Chaplin wrote, directed, acted, edited, and supervised every detail of every film he created. Compromise never interested him. Months were often spent perfecting a single scene rather than releasing work he considered average. Such dedication demanded enormous sacrifices. Even greater rewards followed because every completed film became a timeless masterpiece. More than a century later, millions of people continue watching his greatest works across the world. Many people believe Charlie Chaplin became wealthy simply because he was incredibly talented. That is true. Talent alone, however, is rarely enough. His entrepreneurial decisions made the real difference. While many actors worked as employees for the major film studios, Chaplin wanted complete control over his own work. Being the face of a movie was never enough. Ownership was his real goal. During 1919, he became one of the founders of United Artists alongside some of the biggest names in the film industry. Such a decision was revolutionary. Creative freedom increased, distribution remained under his control, and a much larger share of the profits stayed in his hands. One fundamental principle became clear to Chaplin. People who own valuable assets build wealth. People who sell only their time remain dependent on someone else. His films continued generating value for decades. Work completed once kept producing results year after year. That is the difference between temporary income and lasting wealth. Life was far from easy. Scandals, criticism, political controversy, and even exile from the United States became part of his journey. Many people would have given up. Chaplin kept creating. He kept investing in his art. He kept believing in the value of his work. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson of all. Poverty does not decide your future. Difficult circumstances may slow your progress, but they never determine who you will become. Charlie Chaplin began with no money, no powerful connections, and no special privileges. Everything was built through talent, discipline, relentless work, and above all, the ability to think like an entrepreneur. His greatest legacy may not be the films themselves. The most valuable lesson he left behind is understanding that real wealth comes from creating value, protecting that value, and allowing it to grow over time. That is the true paradox of money. Someone born into poverty can become wealthy. Success begins when you stop selling only your time and start building something that continues creating value long after you are gone. That is why Charlie Chaplin remains far more than a legend of cinema. His life stands as an extraordinary example of financial freedom built through intelligence, courage, and long-term vision. Many people believe Charlie Chaplin became enormously wealthy simply because he was a comic genius. Reality is far more fascinating. Thousands of remarkable actors have appeared throughout the history of cinema. Many earned enormous fortunes during their years of fame, only to lose almost everything after their careers ended. Chaplin followed a completely different path. Childhood poverty had taught him never to believe success would last forever. Art alone was never enough. Business became part of his vision. During the early years of the 20th century, film studios controlled everything. Actors received salaries, while producers kept ownership of the movies and collected profits for years. Chaplin understood one of the greatest principles of wealth at a very early stage. Real wealth comes from ownership, not simply from work. Complete control over his creations became his priority. He wrote the scripts. He directed the films. He supervised the editing. He oversaw the entire production. Most importantly, ownership always remained in his hands. During 1919, together with Mary Pickford, Douglas Fairbanks, and D.W. Griffith, he founded United Artists, a company that changed the history of cinema. The concept was simple, yet revolutionary. Artists would distribute their own films instead of leaving every decision to the major studios. Such a move involved considerable risk. Many believed the idea would fail. Chaplin understood something that still separates wealthy people from everyone else. Control what you create, and you also control your future. That philosophy allowed him to build an extraordinary fortune. Every film represented much more than immediate income. Each one became an asset capable of generating value for decades. Millions of people still watch his films today. Universities continue studying them. Classic restorations continue bringing them to new audiences. His work continues creating value many decades after his death. That is the difference between income and wealth. Income stops when you stop working. Wealth continues working even after you no longer can. Obstacles never disappeared from Chaplin's life. Political controversy and personal scandals surrounded him during the 1940s and 1950s. Public accusations, whether true or false, severely damaged his reputation. During 1952, while Chaplin moved to Switzerland with his family and continued living from the wealth he had already built, daily work was no longer his only source of financial security. Years of intelligent decisions had created a system capable of supporting him through the most difficult moments. Perhaps no greater financial lesson exists. Success can arrive quickly. Fame can disappear. Trends always change. Economic crises appear without warning. People who own valuable skills, assets, rights, and investments build a freedom capable of surviving every season of life. Charlie Chaplin reminds us that wealth is never measured by how much money you earn in a single year. Real wealth comes from creating something that continues producing value throughout your lifetime. That is the true paradox of money. A child who once had no safe bed to sleep in eventually built a fortune that provided security for his family for generations. Luck was never the reason. Privilege played no part. Extraordinary vision made all the difference. That vision transformed an artist into an entrepreneur and a poor child into one of the most financially influential figures in the history of cinema. Perhaps that is the lesson worth remembering. Money matters. Owning something that continues creating value matters even more. True financial freedom does not come from earning more. Real freedom comes from building something that keeps working for you even after you stop working. Before saying goodbye, I would like to leave you with one final thought. Paradox Money was never created to teach people how to become rich overnight. Our mission is to tell the stories of remarkable men and women whose choices, mistakes, and courage still have something meaningful to teach us about money, value, and freedom. Every story is different. Every story reminds us that wealth is never just about numbers. Everything begins with the right mindset. Perhaps this story has given you one new idea, one meaningful question, or one different way of looking at your future. That alone would make this journey worthwhile. Thank you for joining me. See you in the next episode of Paradox Money.